town of North Reading would then be responsible for those. Many efforts go into taking care of the facilities, and the use of fees, the use of any of the mechanisms that Parks and Rec has to their availability goes into this venture. Now, what happened was that the funds that were taken from the personnel services line item had to be made up through the revolving account, so that monies that we normally would have used for the maintenance of park facilities had to go by the way and be used for the recreation director's salary. We did indeed have the largest per capita cut of any department. 32% of our operating budget was cut. 40% of our personnel service line item was cut. I don't want to belabor this. We do a good job. We're very proud of what we do. We believe in the system. We pump a lot of money back into the system, and everybody out there and everybody in the community benefits from this, because a quality Parks and Recreation system has been documented over and over and over that it maintains not only quality of life but equity in your homes. And so, in conjunction with good school systems, good MCAS numbers, and everything else, your Parks and Recreation system is just as important. Please support us on this article.
On the main motion under line 61, Article 5, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, which is $38,000 to be appropriated and transferred from cell tower revenue to line 61 of the fiscal 2003 operating budget. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please raise your right hand, and would my tellers please go to work. Mr. Laidotes.
18.
18. Mr. Romano.
44.
44. Mr. Jones. 39. All those opposed, please raise your right hand. Mr. Laidotes.
60.
60? 16?
16, correct.
16, 1 6. Thank you. Mr. Romano.
25.
25. Mr. Jones.
40.
40. The vote is 101 in favor, 81 opposed. The motion is carried. Mr. Murphy.
Line 119, Regional Voc Tech. I move to increase line 119 of the FY 2003 operating budget, Regional Voc Tech, by the sum of $63,170, and that said sum be raised and appropriated from the tax levy.
Heard the motion. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation? Ms. Ralph.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee recommends this line item. This is really an article that we have no choice on.
Does the Board of Selectmen wish to make a recommendation? Mr. Murphy.
The Board of Selectmen unanimously recommends.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. On the main motion under line 119, Article 5, $63,170 to be raised and appropriated from the tax levy to increase line 119 of the fiscal 2003 operating budget. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Line 119, Mr. Murphy. Oh, that what? I'm sorry. Line number item 34.
Line 34, Fire Department expenses. I move to amend Article 12 of the April 1, 2002 Annual Town Meeting by adding the words "from ambulance revenue" as the funding source for the $24,300 transfer to line 34 as specified in Article 5 as printed in the warrant.
Who's that? Oh,
Finance
Mr.
Committee
Kowalski.
recommends.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Murphy.
The Board of Selectmen unanimously recommends. This is a housekeeping item. There was a line item transfer in the April town meeting warrant that was incorrectly identified, and this will clear that up and keep us all in balance. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, which is to add the words "from ambulance revenue" as the funding source for the $24,300 transfer to line 34 specified in Article 5 as printed in the warrant. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. And I guess that concludes action on Article 5. Article 6. Do we have a motion under Article 6? Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 6.
The motion is to pass over Article 6. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to pass over Article 6, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Article 7. Mr. Murphy.
I move that the town vote to reauthorize the Emergency Medical Services Revolving Fund as voted in Article 15, establish revolving fund for emergency medical services at the April 1999 town meeting as specified in Article 7 as printed in the warrant.
Committee have a recommendation, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Moderator, the Finance Committee does not recommend. The reason for doing this is that we have recommended this 3 times. The action of it after town meeting depends upon an agreement to be reached between members of the Fire Department and the Board of Selectmen. 3 times this has not happened. In effect, this puts the cart before the horse. Therefore, we're not recommending it on the basis of what the firefighters, what the selectmen come to an agreement, bring it back to town meeting, we will know the terms of the agreement, and then we can vote yea or nay. And finally, there's $45,000 of ambulance reserve funds set aside and tied up while this article remains on the table.
Does the Board of Selectmen have a recommendation? Mr. Murphy.
The Board of Selectmen unanimously recommends, and I would respectfully request that you allow this authorization to remain. As you can see, just looking up the front of the room, the board has gone through a great deal of change. We've also been extremely busy, in particular last April and over the summer, with budget and state aid issues. We would like the flexibility to address this issue in the intervening months between now and the budget process. If we addressed it in the intervening months and then had to wait until April to implement, then that could potentially slow us down, in particular if it relates to a type of revenue source. So I would respectfully request that you allow this and reauthorize it. Thank you.
Lady at the microphone, please state your name and address, ma'am.
Yes, Julie Brown on Southwick Road, and I'd like a little bit of an explanation. I have to concur probably with the Finance Committee. I just don't understand. Would you have the fire department explain, if the firefighters are doing the call on the ambulance service, is that count as their on time, and then you bring in people for overtime, or isn't it easier for us, and how much do we pay for the EMS service that we have from town? I know that Armstrong was canceled and we now have Action. I just don't understand the whole thing. Do we get the same type of revenue as a private ambulance service would, and does that defray the cost to the fire department? Not against it, trust me. I mean, I've been a recipient and I appreciate all of their marvelous things. I just wonder if it's easier for the town to go private or keep it the way it is. Thank you.
Chief O'Brien.
There's a lot of questions. First and foremost, at least in my estimation, we've done some studies on private versus public, and the revenue stream is, George, around $140,000 each and every year, which funds then some all the EMS service in the community. So if you were to go private, you would pay out plus the loss of the 140-ish. So that maybe answer that one part. As far as the a quick history, as Mr. Murphy has pointed out, there's a different board. As Mr. Jones has pointed out, 3 years prior, we have had agreements here at town meeting. The prior boards did not agree to go into this. The fire union and I sat down. We had a program laid out. We're ready to go. That includes members would be called in off duty to do non-emergency transfers. Yes, they would be compensated at their overtime rate. It still comes out that it is a revenue generator, somewhere around $200 to $400 to sometimes $700 per run. It depends on distances and services rendered. I don't know. I cannot speak for the local fire now. I do not know where they would be at this point, given history, and I'm not quite sure how they would react to this at this point now. Can we get there? I don't know. Would this give us latitude? Probably. Did I get them all?
Any further discussion on the Mr. O'Leary? Please use the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve O'Leary, 15 Mead Road, former member of the board, again, who was in negotiations with the fire union at the time. And also, just to state out front that I was opposed to implementing this program, but I was not opposed to providing a funding source to allow the board to sit down and talk with the union. But as an individual member, I opposed to it. This is for non-emergency transport. This is not for any supplementation for any other emergency services. So this is people who are going to and from, chemotherapy and other doctor's appointments that require non-emergency transport. Again, there are costs associated with it. It's also the first stepping stone into an expansion of ALS, advanced life support for our fire department. This may or may not be able to provide a funding source for that. Again, the numbers which were bantied about were subject to some sort of interpretation. Additionally, some of my concerns at the time, and still are there, is liability. These people are off duty, but they will be called back at time and a half. They are on our dime, on our clock. If they get injured, get in an accident, if they drop someone, again, there's some liability issues in relation to the town's exposure. I don't think that this is the time, nor did I previously, to get into the expansion of these programs yet. I think there's been ample opportunity, 3 or 4 years now, to try and enter into some sort of agreement. It didn't take place. I think Mr. Jones and the Finance Committee's point is well taken, whereby if the board wants to enter into some sort of negotiations with the fire department in order to expand the program, go ahead and do it, and it's not going to happen overnight. then come back to town meeting with the proposal and lay it all out and lay